Hey YouTubers, Daryl here again. Wanted to go over some of the modifications or adjustments I made to the shifter. As you can see here in the picture, the shifter tower does not sit square with the shifter lever itself. And as a result, we need to make some modification. So the next picture shows some washers that I put in on that shifter to help put more space in between that shifter and shifter tower lever. And then the next picture is a close-up of how now that shifter sits square on the shifter tower and is lined up real nice. And then the last picture here is what the finished shifter looks like with the boot in place and the bracket holding the boot down onto the floor. So that's some of the adjustments I made to make sure that this shifter sits square on the transmission. Okay, transmission is bolted in, cross member is in place, and the transmission is resting on that cross member. So we are ready for the next step, to put the drive shaft in. That's up next.
Okay, here's the drive shaft we got in the mail, and let's open her up. Here's the drive shaft. It's out of the box and all the packaging is taken off. It is now ready to be installed in the car. That's our next step. Okay, drive shaft is in and tightened down. Just have to check the angles. Make sure we got at least 3 degrees. And then we will be set for the drive shaft. That's working pretty good. All balanced by Silver Sport and certified. Alright. Okay, here's a tip on how to measure the drive shaft with yourself. Sometimes it's hard with a tape measure because it bends a little bit. So what I just did was I used a straight edge. This is actually a 2-piece 8-foot straight edge, and I just used one of the pieces, which is 4 feet long, and then in the center of it you have this piece here that slides back and forth so that you can mate the two together. So I just put that between the drive shaft and the transmission per instructions, and then tighten the bolts down. And then instead of starting at the end of the tape, I always start at 1 inch. That way this piece here might be off a little bit. Yeah, we're only talking maybe a millimeter, but this is just the most accurate way I find to take a measurement this critical. So I started at 1 inch, and I adjusted it, and I get 52 and 5/16. Subtract the 1 inch, so my drive shaft measurement should be 51 inches and 5/16 inches. So that's just a tip if you have to do this yourself and you want to make sure you actually have a straight line to that drive shaft. For the drive shaft line, this seems to be an easy way of doing it.
Hey YouTubers, I wanted to mention quickly about the 2 different sizes of release bearings for the clutch that are available for GM transmissions or clutches. You have a picture here of the 2 sizes. One's the standard size on the left, and then the other one is a tall version of the release bearing. And I found that in this application for my car, for whatever reason, the standard size bearing just created too much slop, and I couldn't adjust the clutch enough to get it to release right. So I had to go to a tall throwout bearing to make it work. So if you have this kind of trouble, with the standard bearing that comes in with the clutch kit, you might have to go to a tall release bearing to get that right, angle on the clutch linkage assembly to make it work right. Just some things I had to do for this project.